Good morning, YouTubers. Welcome back to my channel for the Salty Senior. Today we're going to talk about a young 20-year-old sailor, now a freshly minted petty officer, third class in E4, on his way to Guam, his second tour overseas. All the way across the country from Pensacola, Florida, this time flying, then taking a flight, an MSTS flight to Guam. And it was really funny because on the way we had to stop at Wake Island. And if any of you have ever flown onto Wake Island, you're going in for landing and there seems like there's water on both sides of you and water ahead of you, and you didn't know if you were going to make it. But you did, and we got off and had a box lunch, typical Navy fashion, and headed for Guam. So sit back and I hope you'll enjoy it. We'll bid you in a minute. Well, here we are to the wonderful island of Guam. And as I had said before, when you get off the airplane and you walk into the terminal, there's a sign that says Guam is good. But I'll tell you, the first thing I noticed coming off the aircraft in my dress blues is like you had to cut your way through the humidity to get down those ladders, because then it was stairs. You know, we didn't have these beautiful old automatic gate things that would come up to your air conditioned thing, plug onto the door for the airplane, and you walk from A to B. Now you had to climb down these rolled up stairs and walk through the heat till you got into the terminal, where we were picked up by a duty driver from the NAVCOM stay, piled into the old Navy gray truck, and taken out to our wonderful duty station, NCS Guam. You know, actually Guam is a fairly small island. I've been told that it sits on 3 or 4 pillars in the islands above that. I do know that you get a lot of storms over there. They were hit with 1 or 6 hurricanes, though I think over there they're all called typhoons. The first place I learned about is my barracks. Once again, this is back in 1963 time frame. The barracks were open bay barracks where they were just, each floor was partitioned off into 4-man cubicles, and then you had stand-up lockers. I was told that your best go to the galley your first day and bring back a piece of bread so that you could leave it in your locker for the roaches, so they have something to eat and they leave your shoe polish and all the other stuff alone. I'm never sure if that's quite true or not. I never did it, but I did see 1 or 3 roaches in my locker from the time I was there. The next thing, after meeting a couple of guys, I met one gentleman that I had known from Cyprus, is we made it to the Duva Den. That was the enlisted club. Now the Duva Den is an excellent place. They had a petty officer's area or bar, and we could go back into there. And there I was introduced to AC Doocy and ship's captain and crew. Boy, played a lot of ship's captain and crew there. Drinking age over there was 21 years old, and as I mentioned before, I was 20. But since I had started turning gray at 17, nobody ever challenged me. So I was able to drink and order drinks anytime I went in there with no problems. They had a funny thing over there. It was a habit or a benefit, is once you turn 21, the day you turn 21, you got free drinks. So after I had been there for about 7 months or 8 months, I turned 21, and I walked into the petty officer's bar and said, "Hey, I'm 21 today, I get the drink for free." I got a rather nasty look from the bartender who had been serving me for the last 7 months, but it was fun, a lot of fun, and immediately got into a ship's captain and crew game. And those of you who don't know what ship's captain and crew It's a dice game using 5 dice. And you have to roll a 6, 5, and a 4. A 6 is a ship, a 5 is a 4. 6 is the ship, 5 is the captain, 4 is the crew. And then the last 2 dice were your points. And the person who rolls the highest, 6, 5, 4, and by the way, you have to have them in order. You had to have a 6 before you could accept a 5, etc., etc. An automatic winner is if you shot a 6, 5, 4 in double sixes or midnight. That was an automatic winner, and you automatically got the pot. It was a lot of fun. It was a quick game, and you would have 10, 12 people standing around the bar playing it, each putting a buck in to get into the game, and then making a lot of side bets on whether they're going to qualify, score over 7 points, or et cetera, et cetera. It was a good way to lose your paycheck. Also over in Guam, one of the key things I did is I was still young and spry there. I think by this time I had reached about 160 pounds, and I played softball, fast pitch softball, also bowling. I bowled on base, and I also bowled in a bowling alley, 2 bowling alleys downtown. It seems like that's all I was doing. Our watch standing over there was what it's called 222 and 80. You had 2 eves, 2 days, 2 mid-watches, and then 80 hours off. It seems like you're always off or always on watch depending on your attitude. Also over there, for the first time in my life at 20 years old, I bought a car. Well, I chipped in with 3 other guys and we bought this beat up 1954 Mercury. It was a rusted out old stick shift car. You know, the temperature and the salt water and all that kind of good stuff over in Guam made it very easy for cars to rust. And that one was rusted. But it ran. It got you where you wanted to go, and it got you back, thank God. The only problem you had with it is the automatic, the manual transmission would often stick, and you had to pop the hood and go in there and shake up and move around all the good clutches and things to make everything get back and pop into the right gear. Yeah, it was funny. You always kept a rag around to wipe your hands off because you always got a little greasy. I say it was my first car, a Mercury, 1954 stick shift. Great car, great car. My driver's license, to go on base, you had to take a course. It's one of those blood and gut accident courses. You sit through 3 hours of movies and stories and stuff, and they gave you this little card that said that you had attended this driver education class. So I had to drive downtown to Guam, downtown Guam and Agana to stop in, and I was applying for figure I'd get a learner's permit, learn how to drive my stick shift. A friend of mine, also one of the other owners of the car, had driven me down there, and I walked in and filled out the paperwork, and the guy said, "You had any driver training?" And I showed him that little card from the base, and by God, they gave me a driver's license. I never had to take a driver's test, an eye test, or nothing. They just flat out walked out of there with a Guamanian driver's license. Well, the guy that took me was so upset at that because he had to do the whole 6 yards down there, the driving test and the road test and all that kind of stuff. He said, "Well, you got the driver's test, you got the license, drive yourself back." And he walked off and left me there. I guess he spent some day in a bar down there. So there I am with my stick shift car that I had never driven in my life, downtown Agana, Guam, trying to figure out how to get it going, keep it running, and get it back to base. I did manage. And it's one of the few times that I drove that car without having a beer too, but I did manage. One of the key places that we used to go during having time out was going over to the Japanese airstrip. That was a great place to party. It was an abandoned airstrip the Japanese used during World War II. We used to get a couple of cases of San Miguel beer and go out there, have it iced down, and we'd party out there in those airstrips all day. Now, if you know San Miguel, over there, it's guaranteed to be someplace between 8 and 12 or 14% alcohol. Good beer. I'll still drink a San Miguel if I can. We call it San Magoo here, but that's about it. The next thing I did is I was promoted to E5, second class petty officer. Aha! My life was beginning. I also got engaged to get married, and so I was waiting for my transfer to leave Guam after 18 months, head back to New York, marry my fiance, and head to Winter Harbor, Maine, which is my next story. Hope you enjoy, and we'll talk to you later.